love my standing desk. It's like the best thing ever because I got ADHD and I'm all fidgety. So I get to, move around and
Right.
stand. It's great. It's great for your standard ADHD dude. Um,
Yeah. Well, in my time, we just called that creativity. We didn't
it's
call it a disease. We called it a benefit.
I do personally think it's a benefit, which is why I think they want to lock up all the neurodivergent people because
Yeah.
propaganda doesn't work on us. We have
Well,
pattern recognition.
neurodivergent implies that normal is boring and robot-like.
Right. Well, I think
Divergent from what? Divergent from an obedient worker who goes home and consumes crap after they've exhausted themselves paying the CEO huge amount. No, give me a break.
right. What was it? What did I see? I think it was like 6,000 times more the CEO makes. I don't remember what the number was, but
It's ridiculous.
it's
No,
crazy.
no, this is all language. For me, language is really important because language communicates intent. And I mean, you can use it neurodivergent. Everybody likes it. It's a good, feel good, inclusive term, apparently. But I find creative a much more inclusive term than neurodivergent.
I really like your argument. I'm not even going to, I don't want to push back on that at all because I think it's very forward thinking. And I think it removes the implication that there's something
Wrong.
potentially wrong.
Right.
Bingo.
Yeah.
So, exactly.
Nothing wrong with you and I, buddy.
No, sir.
Nothing
No,
wrong with
sir.
you and I.
Well, everybody, good morning and welcome to the dialogue with John Oliver.
Here we
We're
are.
on a different day, but told John, I was like yesterday, because I wasn't able to do our normal time. I'm like, we got to have the show. This is like my happy place. This is where I get to go and do something different than, the monotony and the dark stuff. And so, especially considering just how grim and dark the current time is, we kind of agreed that maybe we should do an episode that's about good things instead of looking for all those problems and all of those things that are so, negative. Um, I want us to spend the next hour talking about things that are good, talking about and reminding ourselves that there are progressive and positive things going on. And that despite all of this, people are striving to still do good. And it's easy. It's very easy right now. And I will be the first to tell you that I'm, guilty of this trap as well. To kind of forget that. And so today I want to give you a lot of really great things that I have seen. And, both me and John did a little bit of research this morning, looking into this and finding a couple things. So, but before any of that, John, what's going on? How are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing pretty well. When you said, "Hey, let's do something on the positive things," I thought, well, what's the positive things? What's normal these days is that we sit in front of our devices and doom scroll and everything's bad and only bad things are happening. Well, among the bad, there's enough pushback from the bad. Let's say that there are some good things happening. But I just want to just also preface that with the little dialogue that we had before we went live,
Mm-hmm.
where we were talking about the concept of neurodivergent versus,
Yeah.
in my time, what we called creativity.
Yeah.
And I continue to insist on that, even though I identify in so-called ADHD and other diseases, the various attributes that my life has had. And I actually have a lot of pushback against the idea that anything except some kind of robotic worker is somehow neurodivergent. Neurodivergent means you diverge from something. What are you diverging from? Some kind of norm where what? Everybody is blah. Everybody is like boring and doesn't do anything creative, just makes their salary and then goes spend their money and then goes to bed.
Yep.
simple life, very boring. No, we're all neurodivergent. We're diverging from something that is absurd as a proposition for us to live. So here's a way to take to think about today. We've made some notes, right, about what we're gonna talk about, but let's also let some free associations happen. Like the sidebar, the oh, sorry, we went on a tangent. Let's let ourselves go on tangents today and see
Yeah.
where it leads.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, I think that, when all of the dudes were sitting around in their togas having these discussions, I don't think they necessarily put guardrails on where that discussion went.
Indeed not.
That's the idea of exploration.
Right.
There's philosophical exploration, which you and me both would agree is entirely lacking in the modern dialogue, right? The willingness to explore what is considered established. And, I think that there's plenty of examples as to why that is actually very detrimental
Oh yeah.
to us as a society, as a species. And um, there's still so much that at the same time, it's not necessarily that those discussions aren't happening, it's that we're not hearing about them. And
Right.
that's a really
Because
important point to make, is
right.
that there's a large effort to support um, suppress
Yeah.
that
Silence.
kind of
Silence
dialogue.
us. Silence us. Right.
Yes,
Well,
correct.
it's very clear. When people discuss right and wrong, and they discuss like ethics and moral issues and so on, when some big bully just comes up and stands in front of everybody and says, "No, might makes right," that's intended to shut us all down, to shut us
Might
all up.
is right.
You know.
You might be wrong, good sir.
Good one. Good
Yeah.
one. Excellent.
Yeah.
Good
Play on
salvo.
words.
That's a good
That's,
opener. I like that.
that's what I call good semantics.
Right.
Um,
Right.
it's true. I mean, I just think that we have, and I've always like, it's not that we don't have the capacity to do good. It's that we lack the, what's the word? The motivation
Motivational
to put in
content.
guardrails
Yes.
against what we know we
Right.
are quite possible of being. We
Right.
know that humans are very possible it's extremely likely, nature versus nurture. If you're a Nepo baby and you've never worked for a thing in your life and you've bought everything you've ever wanted and everything you've ever wanted has gone well and you've never experienced any pushback or failure because you can just buy your way out of every problem, eventually you'll run into a problem that you can't buy your way out of. Iran. And suddenly it all falls apart right now. And so, it's like, what it's interesting, and it's important that we explore the root cause of that and highlight the things that will help us um, mitigate that in the future.
Right.
Because regardless of the future outcome, what is certain is we need to bring in these creative people to build those creative guardrails
Right.
to shepherd us into what is going to be a challenging future. There is no
Right.
debate onto whether, in regards to whether or not the future is going to be challenging for everyone.
Yeah.
But there's creative people who have solutions, and it's those people we need to elevate and support. And in that sense, I think we're going to we want to kind of encourage you, I suppose, to go and find those things because they're there, but they're not necessarily easily seen by design. And so, if we find these things, we can talk about them, we can elevate them, and a great example of things that give me some happiness here, and I'd be happy to kind of lead off with my first example of positive news, personally, because I've been to Chile, and there's a lot of negative things happening in Chile, including the fact that they elected the son of a literal Nazi as president.
Right.
But
Right.
there's also good things happening. And I really like this one. So the outgoing Chilean president, Gabriel Boric, he signed a decree fully protecting 337,000 square kilometers of water around the Juan Fernandez archipelago and the Nazca des Pintoradas Marine Park, bringing the total protected area to nearly 899,268 square kilometers, which is now the largest no-take zone on Earth. This pushes Chile's total ocean protection past 50% of its territorial waters, and nudges global marine protected area coverage to pass 10% of the world's ocean
Pretty
for the
good.
first time.
Pretty good.
This is the kind of thing that is what we need to be doing. We need to be protecting ecosystems. We need to be protecting species. And particularly when you're talking about Chile, you're talking about, a lot of waters down the coast, kind of towards the Arctic. And there's a lot of species down there that are really amazing, really incredible.
Right.
And lots of penguins and really fun things. When I was lucky enough to go and, experience Patagonia and all that stuff, see the parks, go down there and see the penguins and kind of just barely go out around the Cape at the very bottom. I've got a hoodie that says Fin del Mundo, end of the world. And I stood there and I got a little cruise. It was amazing. It was amazing. And I'm so happy to hear that environment is being protected by the outgoing president from the Nazis. That's great. I love it. So
Good.
it's harder to repeal something once it's there. And that's a really important point to make. So that's my first bit of good news. And I'm going to pass it over to you.
So, I think that's great. And I just want to remind people that when there's good news, you always got to remember that you're fighting the bad news. And you mentioned Patagonia, and I'm sure you've probably heard about burning land in Patagonia, and people from a certain nation coming in as tourists into the Patagonia and burning property, because if the property is not useful anymore, you get it cheap. Have you heard about this?
Let me see.
Oh, you're looking it up. Okay, you haven't heard about it. Okay, there are Israeli tourists. This is
Jesus
documented.
Christ.
There are Israeli tourists burning the Patagonia because the government that you're talking about, that Donald Trump likes so much, is selling off land that is no longer useful for farming or any other purpose. They're selling it off cheap. So Israeli tourists are going in and burning this land and then buying it for cheap.
Mm-hmm.
It's all over the Spanish-speaking media.
So in Argentina.
In Argentina, in the Patagonia.
Yes.
And it's all over the Spanish-speaking media, which, of course, us, especially in the States, unilingual, English-speaking people don't pay any attention to the Spanish media, but it's all over Spanish-speaking media.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point. I mean,
I hate to bring up something bad on a day when we're supposed to be talking about good, but there you are. So that's my footnote to that. People can go research it. You will find articles about that topic, burning the Patagonia. So talking about, cold places, let's talk about Mark Carney and the Arctic. Okay. So, as you know, what we like is when things are going positive, when changes are being made by governments like you've just cited, that are positive changes, that are trying to fight this nihilistic, end of the world, chiliastic bullshit that Trump and his dead men friends, they're all going to die soon. For some reason, they want to take the rest of the world with them. I don't know what's up with their brains. Scrambled eggs.
I think RFK has been sharing his brainworm. That's probably what's going on.
Yeah, probably. So let me read this about the defense file in Canada. Mark Carney has um, put a major investment into protecting the Arctic. He says we can't count on anybody else to do this, and it's important that it be done.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as it includes 9 billion in additional spending in fiscal year 25-26, the largest increase in Canadian Air Force pay raise in a generation, and a new defense investment agency, an actual agency dedicated to defense. Uh, and also another agency called Defense Industrial Strategy, and they're also participating in the EU SAFE program. Okay, as well as a defense cooperation with Denmark, Greenland, and the Faroe Islands, wherever that is. I'm going to have to look that one up. And this is actually from a Substack article, I believe. Yeah, it is Paul Stewart's Substack article. I can send a link or include a link in our description afterwards. And so, this kind of major investment in Arctic security is twofold: to protect Canadian sovereignty. First of all, we have, despite the false statements of your president, we have a lot of water, and we have a lot of oil, and we have a lot of resources in Canada, which is why he wants us to become the 51st state so he can steal it all. And not going to happen. So this broad cooperation among people who believe in the international world order and a rules-based order is something Carney has been pursuing alarmingly successfully over the past several months. Another example is the India pact that he just signed.
Oh,
And
he did get through to India. So a
yeah,
lot of this stuff, it's ironic because I remember when I was thinking about this, I was like, they started the war, and I had been tracking that right when this happened. It was like on February 27th or 26th
right.
that Carney was actually visiting India. So at the time they started this, Carney was in a foreign country negotiating a trade deal with India following the mother of all deals between the EU and India.
Right.
And to support your point, Carney is, I think, the centerpiece of the Democratic pushback. I will also note that it was the first two countries to condemn Israel's invasion of Lebanon were Canada and France.
Right.
And so, in that sense, we are seeing actually positive pushback. The French police raided the Rothschilds' bank in France,
Finally.
in connection to a UN official who had been feeding Epstein information by the name of Aiden, from the
Right.
UN. The fact that France is taking any action against the Rothschild is really important to note because
Yeah.
the Rothschilds are the most wealthy and powerful family in the world. If they're willing, and the Rothschilds are in France. If anyone can do anything about it, if anyone can put these people in
Right.
jail,
Yeah.
it's France,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
So I think that's arguably also positive news
Yeah.
because to do that at all, it's a signal. It's like your network, your nexus, it's not safe, and it's an opportune moment. This network has never been weaker, so it's very interesting. And like you said, there's a lot of France and Canada have been two of the most outspoken nations against this, and I think that's important to note as well. Sorry to interrupt you. I'd love to hear more about this India deal.
Yeah, well, there's not much to say. I mean, it's a deal that's signed. The details of it are probably somewhere on the internet, but it's for me, it's not the details of the thing that matter. It's the fact that it's done. The fact that while Trump is busy bombing the shit out of Iran, and blowing up, uh, you know, uh, the city of Tehran especially, and exhausting military capacity, while the Iranians respond with way cheaper technology, Carney's going around the world establishing economic partnerships in Asia and Europe. In other words, we're just north of the United States, but because of Trump, we have been motivated to make these economic partnerships with like-minded, rules-based folks across the northern hemisphere, all the way across Asia, all the way to the EU, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the only country we haven't done much with yet is Russia, Trump's friend. So Trump can go ahead and be a friend of Putin and sort of backhandedly give him part of Ukraine, which I believe is part of his unstated goal. And meanwhile, Carney's making deals with the rest of the world, which is 40%. The rest of the world's economy is 40% if you take out Russia, China, and the United States. So it's not a small amount of economic activity, and it's
No.
fine. We're fine with that. We'd rather trade locally, as it were. I mean, the border's right there. It's always been a completely transparent border. Travel between our countries has always been very easy. My entire life, I've gone back and forth without any issues. I will not visit the United States until this is over.
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't.
They're detaining people from Canada. They've made a point of it now. There's
Well, yeah,
multiple examples of people from Canada being detained,
yeah.
including little girls,
Well,
like
yeah.
7-year-old girls.
That 7-year-old autistic girl who is detained with her mother in Texas um, is a primary example of the fascism at work.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no reason why this cannot be justified in any way. And if it's justified because agents can say, oh, the paperwork you have in your hands is not valid because I don't see it in a Palantir database, then we know there's something fundamentally wrong. That we have a God called data, and data is God, and it would never occur to anybody except anybody who's entered data to, which is like a lot of people, like Dumbos, data gets input somewhere by somebody. Data is not neutral. Data gets put into a database by people and they make mistakes constantly. And you can't use AI to identify names because there are too many John Smiths in the world. There are too many Garcias in the world. You can't just use data to go out and find people. No, I get it. Their data is getting very pointed, but the assumptions are still behind the data. People are using the data with assumptions, and those assumptions are assumptions to deport brown people and so on and so forth. Anyway, don't get me started.
You know,
Speaking of, I just want to, if I just, before you interrupt, I just want to say, I want to take that to Canada's AI registry, but I want to let you go first.
yeah, no, for sure. So a couple things. One, you bring up the importance of Canada in all of this, and something I'd like to point out is um, the importance of Canada and how the current situation, particularly in the Arctic, changes the trade relationship between Canada and Europe is very important because people forget the Earth is a sphere, right?
Right.
So if you're traveling around a sphere, there is a difference, fundamental difference in point A to point B based on where you are on that sphere.
Right.
Now, the Arctic was very icy as a result of human causes of climate change. The ice and the ice sheets have receded, and suddenly there is a trade route that
Right.
is massively shorter than what was there before.
Right.
The idea of Arctic security is not about security at all. It's who controls the trade route. Now, that trade route didn't mean anything to anyone because it was so iced over, it couldn't do anything. It's always been Canadian territorial waters. That's never
Right.
actually been in question at all.
Right.
But now they've got a highway between Canada and Europe. And one of the bills Carney's talking about, massive infrastructure to create the infrastructure needed to be shipping and doing trade from that point in the Arctic. And that is why the United States is so interested in Canada. It's why the world is China is sending ships to the Arctic, because it's not about it's about leverage. And
Trade. Well,
Carney
it's about trade.
understands leverage better than anybody I've seen in the political scene in my life. And so I am grateful that Carney is in charge of Canada. I'm grateful that he is in the position he is, because Canada can bail out Europe, and Europe needs a bailout. Europe needs to be bailed out. They need the infrastructure support. They need to be able to make these things. And Canada has a really generally more progressive view on environmental protections. Europe has some of the more stringent environmental protections.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
So those countries, and what I will say is this oil crisis, Europe's about to change how they do their energy. They are regretting moving away from all of that nuclear energy right now.
Right.
And what the world just learned is oil is not reliable, and you're going to see all of these countries pivot to sustainable energy. That is true. It's essential, right? So it's a catalytic event. The IEA, right? They were already at, I want to say, 56% of the stockpile anyway. They just released 400 million barrels total. They can't do this again. There is no bailout. This is, in a large way, the end of oil. These countries in the Middle East are going to have to decide. It takes 5 to 6 years to rebuild this refinery. If I do that and the world is stuck and there's not enough LNG, what are they going to do? Like they have to decide whether or not they want to even do that. Is it more does it make more sense? Let's go even farther with that. They are entirely dependent on desalination. Requires a tremendous amount of energy.
Right.
They're going to have to decide: do we rebuild this dependent on fossil fuels, or do we pivot to nuclear and sustainable energy? Because one, they have to continue to power these things, and if you can't depend on it, people are realizing that something as finite as this, and if the Strait of Hormuz closes and the entire global economy collapses, this is the kind of push people need to change. I'll also note that it's kind of interesting, but maybe this is a deep breath for the planet. A fundamental outcome here is that you're going to have less emissions because there is going to be less oil and fossil fuels burning. This could be a mild offset. I'm not saying it's going to, end anything, but maybe this could be a breath of fresh air that the planet needs. Again, they are burning a lot of things, so it's probably not going to be as effective. But regardless, it's important that, a little silver lining here. This is going to change the outcome of, it's going to alter the trajectory of humanity. There's absolutely no argument that it's not. It's going to change the environment. I mean, all these countries to go to war, they need gas. Everything runs on gas. You think they're going to be able to go to war as effectively? No, it slows everything. And I think that's an important note here because, and hopefully, at the end of this, the U.S. realizes that the best thing we can do with our Navy is sink it and turn it into artificial reefs. So we can't bother the rest of the world. So I'm a huge proponent of taking our military industry, our old ships and our failing Navy and turning them all into artificial reefs in the Gulf because, maybe we could bring them back. I can dream. So, but it's in all of this. It's I'm trying to say there's always an effect. There's always the unexpected effect. There's always something else that happens. It's not linear. Reasoning is not linear. Systems are not linear. And so we look at all of these things as they are dramatic and changing. And there's one last point you mentioned, data. And I don't want to argue against you. I just kind of want to defend data a little bit, because data is like a hammer. It's a tool. And you can cherry pick, which is what the conservative fascists do. They cherry pick data. Oh, well, 90% of crime is, 90% of the black community has a felony in this city. Well, the black community is, 500 people, and it's a poverty-ridden, gang territory, because no one is provided with opportunity. So, of course, Ben Shapiro, you're picking a statistic, um, you know, and I think that's pretty. I think that's also like significant. But when I use data, I'm I'm saying, well, I need data. I need data. I need to put together a picture. I need that data. But I also need to understand that people also lack the understanding of causation, and correlation, right? You can have two data sets, they can appear to be related and not be related. So it's cross analysis, it's understanding that, data is not a data is just a tool. Like we've talked about this multiple times. I love the hammer analogy, because give a guy a hammer, he'll build a house. It's the same with AI, right? You can use AI to figure out exactly where the U.S. Navy is pulling its ships from by searching the ship watching community across the entire world and putting together where all of the logistic vessels are going. And you can figure out that the U.S. is undoubtedly moving at least 2 brigades of armor to the Middle East, which they wouldn't do unless they were planning on invading Iran. I can get the same intelligence. They're trying to keep it a secret, and I got it for free because people don't know what they're viewing. It's stuff like that. You can use it to do the things that they're ignorant of, but at the same time, they can do the Ben Shapiro and use that against other people. So I just wanted to add that caveat.
Yeah. So I just want to jump in there and make it very clear that I am not against data. I am not against AI. I am specifically, and actually in the same spirit, completely against the deification, that means making into a god, of anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe that AI is bad, just like I don't believe in any other such absolutist, everything is all this type of thinking. Okay. So, of course, AI is useful, but those who would like to profit from it make it like a god. They want you to believe in it like a religion. They shove it at the top of your feed so that you will believe that it is the most important thing going. They will want you to believe so that you will sell your fertile, rich farmland so that they can build AI data centers on it. And the farmers are saying no to $25 million to buy their farmland because they want to eat. They are the most sensible people on the planet. They understand that food and water is more important than your AI prompt at the top of your fucking computer. Excuse my French. But these people are real. They understand that what's at stake here is water and food. That's what I don't like about AI data centers. They're trying to push this kind of excessive use of AI for absolutely, completely not useful purposes. Human beings have intelligence in their minds, and they have to continue to use your brain and not be convinced that somehow technology is going to liberate you by making you more stupid. That is just something, that's a proposition that anybody with any sense is just going to say, that's ridiculous. I'm a creative person. I want to have time to be a creative, rich person. If you want technology to do something for me, get it to do the dishes. Oh, we already have that. Great.
Yeah. Let's talk about positive data.
Right. So yeah, I'm sure there is. I just wanted to say that, I know that you use AI, and I know a lot of people use AI for good purposes. So that's really not an argument that needs to be made. What needs to be made is the ethical question of how AI is being implemented and pushed on society.
Yes.
And the idea that people, this is one of capitalism's greatest achievements, is to convince people to take a hit in their personal lives because capital is more important. When you try to convince a farmer they should sell the thing that they live off of because data centers are more important than your life and your
Yes.
livelihood, and that somehow you, as just the poor illiterate farmer, are somehow an inferior person because of your contribution to our society, which is food. You know, it's the
Yeah.
same thing with the lack of any kind of monoculture in agriculture that destroys entire ecosystems, that puts a whole bunch of species at risk or kills them, because we have this idea that we need to establish a huge field of canola or something, right? So the whole argument here is around domination. And this is why, coming back to oil and alternative clean energy, um, the core of all of this is the notion of domination, of people in a position of power where they hold a resource that they can sell at excessive profit to for a society to function. And like
Yeah.
I said a few days ago in just um, a little note on Substack, I said the sun is out this morning, so people who have solar panels have no issues. They can power what they need to with the sun. The sun is out. The sun's not going to charge you for it. And the Strait of Hormuz is closed.
Yeah.
And just to make the connection, because we didn't make it, the Strait of Hormuz is closed by Iran, and the Northwest Passage is Canadian.
Yeah. And and let me give you like a little example of something we do in our personal lives that is nice. We have a little generator. It's not a big generator, um, and we use it every day. It comes with a little solar panel array. We put it in the backyard, and we make our breakfast with the power of the sun. We use an air fryer. We run the air fryer off that little generator. I
Right
make
on.
my smoothie with the power of the sun every day. And I, make my pancakes, my coffee. And this is just a great example of a little way where solar, and guess what? It saves us like $100 a month, on energy. Save $100. And guess what? There you go. It's cool. Like there's little things. That's like a worthy investment, right? Also in an emergency, if you need like your fridge, you can plug into the sun and your food won't spoil. Like there's all kinds of cool things you can do with it.
Yeah,
But
but you live in Southern California.
mm-hmm,
It's
of
still
course.
cold up here in Canada.
Yeah. Well, and that's true. Like it doesn't work everywhere,
Right,
but based on your geography, like it totally can. And if you're in an area where you do get some sunshine, it's a good thing.
right.
Now, I want to talk about energy because I have some great news in regards to energy. The EU has hit a tipping point. For the first time, wind and solar generated 30% more electricity, 30% than fossil fuels in the EU in 2025.
Great.
They
That's
have
great news.
surpassed, so it has been demonstrated that sustainable energy is more effective. Okay.
And affordable.
Australia, the country's grid hit record demand while renewables supplied 50% of power.
There you go. There you go.
Okay. The UK's first deep geothermal plant in Cornwall is delivering 24/7 renewable electricity for 10,000 homes and from nearly 5 kilometers underground. Spain doubled its solar and wind capacity in 6 years, demonstrating how clean energy shields economies from fossil fuel price volatility,
Right,
especially relevant with Iran war driving energy costs.
right.
Energy
Exactly.
security is, as the UN's Secretary General Gutierrez put it, the resources of the clean energy era cannot be blocked or weaponized. There are no price spikes for sunlight and no embargoes on the wind.
Correct.
That is proof of concept right there, folks. And it should
Exactly.
tell you a lot about why the US is so worried about oil, because the rich people who make all their money on oil are like, oh shit, it's outperforming. We're getting outperformed because oil has never been the most efficient form of energy production.
No,
You
indeed.
lose a lot of energy when you use oil and fossil fuels. It's
Yeah.
not as efficient. It's not as effective. It's physics, folks. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I really don't care about how much you love your diesel truck. Stupid. Like, sorry if you have a diesel truck, but like, dude, come on. Just you're literally like, and I don't know if in Canada you have this, but you've got people in the US whose truck is it's as tall as my head. They have to crawl up a freaking ladder to get in these trucks, and it's just, you don't need that shit, bro, unless you work on a farm, in which case, like, and in which case you shouldn't be driving around that much. You sure as hell shouldn't be driving on the freeway with that thing. It's interesting. I want to point this out. On TikTok, a bunch of Americans started posting about their check engine light going on, like weird, like everybody. And a guy was explaining that he drove a 1970s car. And that car uses no computers. You control the airflow and everything through screws on the engine. And he said, I know that my car should run a specific way on a type of fuel. And he said, in corroboration with a lot of other people, that they are messing with the mix. They are cutting it with more ethanol, which is causing damage to people's engines. And that goes to show you as well that this is not only is it not sustainable, but most people now, they're large in America. Everyone needs a car because they intentionally don't provide public transport. So people have to get a car to go to a job, and the car companies and the oil companies have used it as a form of kind of, I don't want to say it is kind of a form of limitation of freedom, a form of slavery, because if you want to be employed, you need a car.
Right.
Like if in San Diego, we've committed billions of dollars to trains and public transport, which have not materialized across California. But we've put billions into it. It's one of the things where we're looking like at sustainability. It's not that the money or the willpower is not there. It's that the corruption is there. So if we're able to remove the corruption, we can build those things.
Yeah.
Right. So the steps to going to a better, at least mentality. Let's talk about opportunities in California. We have more coastline in California than anywhere else in the United States. We have so much coastline. You know how much wave energy we could be generating?
Yeah.
Like we have so many opportunities. There's scientists. There's a guy who had to go underground because he figured out how to turn plastic into fuel. Like, why would you pull it out of the ground? Go to the Pacific garbage patch and start collecting that shit. Right? You really want to keep your fuel? Go and start cleaning up the ocean.
Yeah.
Right? We've got solutions, folks. They're there. Yeah. Brilliant people.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure that people see them and know they're there, because they like to kill them. They do. It's wild. So make sure that you go and look for these things and make these people public and support them and get this stuff out there.
Yeah. So let's just, I just want to pick at a couple of things you said. First of all, I don't think it's necessary whatsoever to demonize people with big trucks. Those big trucks can run on electricity. They don't have to run on oil. They don't have to run on a gas engine. So the idea that there's a culture around people who want trucks that run on gas, and a culture around people who want electric vehicles, and that the electric vehicle crowd has long hair and they're like lefty liberals, and the people who want gas trucks are somehow right-wing wackos. This is just a stupid old mythology that doesn't apply anymore. There is more. I like your hair. Yeah, it's nice. I used to have hair like that too a long time ago.
I had to do it because you're like, you got long hair, and I'm
All right, exactly.
I had to do
So,
it.
but here's the point: is that that's all absurd. That's all absurd loyalism to like football teams or something. It's got nothing to do with reality. Reality is very simple. You either think in an ethical, you think about ethics and morality of any decision you make, or you think strategically. Strategically means what's best for me, like for my bottom line, for let's say this year. Um, People who come up with answers that are clearly based on a strategy of some kind to get some kind of upper hand or make a profit or whatever it is, but they completely ignore the ethical dimension, those people are, in my view, on the decline. I think people who are starting to think about the moral value of decisions and the ethics of technology and so on are on the rise, and they're insisting that we base our decisions and the structure of our society on ethics and not on profit. Profit can still be made, but it has to be done ethically. And there are lots of people who are advocating for this. And of course, one of my most popular posts on Substack is called the boycott list. You know, you can take actions. If you take away the profit from a corporation by not investing in them, either in your retirement fund or by what you buy on a daily basis, if you take that money away from the billionaires, they're going to pay attention. If you go to the No Kings rally this Saturday, they'll go, that was a nice party that the lefties, the radical left, had. The radical left being like the majority of the population now, not very radical anymore. Oh, let's go to that, shall we? I just want to point out about the No Kings rally, since it just came up in conversation, the following really interesting facts about that. Can we go there?
Yeah, sorry. One thing I do I'm gonna hand it to you, but there's one person in the chat, and they're making a good point, and it's about the use of they are a contractor, and a lot of the electric trucks don't work for towing, and so there's an argument there, and I want to say that I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there is a culture of people who drive big diesel trucks because they want to, not because they need to. It's like the ego thing, right? Like the bigger my truck, the bigger I am. You like Ford tough, Ford F-350 for fun, America, right? Like no. Now, if you're a contractor, yeah, you need the towing power.
Of
The
course.
towing power. You got to rent a Caterpillar and drive it over there. I'm never going to tell anybody that, they, aren't going to. That if you need it, you need it. But
Right,
if only
exactly. And I agree with
contractors
that.
drove diesel trucks,
Right.
we wouldn't have this issue. Like
Well,
you get a permit. You get a permit to drive a big diesel truck because you're a contractor.
Yeah.
And then that way you don't need to worry about it.
So I'm not talking about that. When I'm talking, again, it's not a religion. It doesn't mean that all vehicles have to be electric. That's absurd. It's just like not all vehicles have to be gas, right? If you have specific needs to have a gas engine, go for it. But the majority of the population does not have such a need. So the majority of the population should be transitioning to electric vehicles. It's not a religion. You don't have to, it's not a faith. There's no faith here. There's just, do you want to eat? It's very practical. Do you want clean air? Do you want to eat? Do you want clean water? Those are the ethical questions. And if there's a residue of need for diesel cars or gas vehicles of any kind, if there's a residue of the need for that, no problem. Nobody should outlaw that kind of thing. But the majority of people should be going to electric. There's just no question. And of course, in that, you need to analyze where do the materials that need to build the batteries, you need to analyze all of that. It's not a religion. You have to look at the details. You have to look at what's actually going into it, right? So yeah, I totally I agree with the person who made the comment. Absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. And so what's your...
Well, No Kings. I just thought it was interesting that No Kings is happening on Saturday, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that's happening, and that's a positive thing. Our theme for today is supposed to be, hey, what's the good stuff that's happening? So no kings is definitely going to be positive. Here's a couple of statistical details to talk about statistics. There was a poll done asking people who protested at the No Kings rallies, the last two of them. The question was, do you believe that violence could be part of an answer? And the attendees at the first No Kings protest, 33% of them said, yeah, could do that. At the second protest, 40% polled said, yeah, violence might be necessary. And then, in advance of the upcoming No Kings Day protest in a couple of days, it's down to 23%.
That's great.
And that is attributed to the death of Charlie Kirk. Political violence, maybe not such a good idea. So
Yeah.
but it is a double-edged sword. And here's the double-edged sword. You go out on Saturday, you go to attend the No Kings protest, you feel really good about it, you have your sign, you chant, and you make your opinion be known with a huge crowd, projected to be larger than any of the previous two protests. But on Monday morning, you have to keep going. You can't just feel good about going out with your friends on Saturday, because that doesn't achieve anything. The people who are pulling the strings sit in their office, look down at all the crowds and go, wow, those people are having a really good time. Look at their costumes. They're all so happy.
Yeah.
And it's nice
Yeah.
to see all the happy hippies out there holding their signs, but we've still got the keys. We've still got the cards, you know?
You don't hold the cards, I hold them. It's a deck. I have the Joker. See? Hey, I have the Joker. I'm a Joker. I'm funny. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, I like it.
I do. I watched him talk so much that I can never watch him talk again. And
Right.
because I watched. I remember when he first ran in 2016, and I said, "Grab him by the." He's like, "Grab him by the." I'm like, "Okay, really? Like, no way, folks. Like, I was raised in a decent family. We don't go around grabbing people by the junk." Well, apparently, not only that, but we have so much evidence, and like, I think too, like, again, I'm gonna use silver linings here.
That's what the show's
The
about.
conscientious objector line lawyers that help conscientious objectors has seen a 1,000% increase
Right.
in clients
Right.
since the Iran war started.
Right.
And that's huge. That's huge. That's internal dissent on a major level. It means people, will people in the military are starting to say, "Wow!" Like, and the primary reason was not because they don't want to die in a war they don't believe in. The primary reason was they don't want to kill in a war they don't believe in. And that's really important because I want to highlight something that the mass casualty events, the civilian events, and at this point, I'm almost certain the reason they've been blowing up all of these fishermen is because Palantir is using predictive software
Yeah.
for targeting.
Yeah.
And the software is stupid because it's an algorithm that is predictive. It's not a actual functional targeting data. It's the the boat the boat is a boat. It's got 11 people on it, and it has a propeller, and it's coming out of Venezuela. Okay, press the button. It was great. We got them. All the
Yeah.
narcos, they're good. They're blown up.
Yeah.
I'm the best president ever. I'm
Right.
gonna go and take my Adderall and
Yep.
then let Mr. Chung write a bunch of tweets for me on Truth. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go and dance and sing at Mar-a-Lago at the do my dance YMCA.
Yeah. Right.
Like what? Like they're dumb. They're dumb as hell. And the military, the people in the military, they don't want to go die for these guys. They're not interested in that, and that's that's reassuring to see
Yeah.
that they've seen a 1,000% increase in those objections, including someone at a major level rank is
Right.
a client they have taken, which
Right.
says that you're going up to the higher levels of the military.
Yeah.
And that's really reassuring for me.
Yeah.
I
For
want to
sure.
give another really cool advancement.
Hang.
In
Wait.
terms, sorry, go.
Wait. Um, I don't know if you read this somewhere, but I can't give a footnote for it. But I read somewhere that that AI, because it's just combining information and it doesn't actually know what it's doing, it's just very good at aggregating information. One analysis came up with the result that AI would 95% of the time push the nuclear button.
One more time.
AI would 95% of the time come to the conclusion that the nuclear button should be pressed. So AI is not ethical. AI is not God. AI is a tool, like you say. But if AI is programmed in such a way that, like Grok, it will come up with things like that. Sorry,
Yeah.
I remain a skeptic.
Yeah. Well, look, you don't let AI run the kill chain, right? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's just like you don't start buying and building fighter jets that don't have pilots, right? It removes the conscientious objector element, which is really important, because if the pilot hits the button to shoot the missile, it's very different when, all of these things are going on, and it's just a lot of nonsense, right? But you know what we're learning is when you have AI fight a war against a country that actually planned their strategy. And if you guys haven't read my most recent article on the Iran Middle East war update, it's titled Iran Middle East War Update. Iran's strategy is taking shape, and it's brilliant. And I'm not talking about Iran is the best country in the world. The regime is awesome. No, I'm appreciating a plan that is masterful, that is exactly what you would need to sculpt to beat an enemy that's leveraging AI, to beat an enemy that is not using a human element. And if you think about, all of that, it's undeniable when you're looking at the strategy. Let me give you guys a really quick example. So the United States parked a ship, the USS Tripoli at Diego Garcia. In that same period, another left my home port. My fiance saw the USS Boxer and its Marine Expeditionary Group leave the port with another 2,000 or so Marines from Camp Pendleton. Probably quite a few of my friends from down there were on that boat. And they parked it at Diego Garcia. What did Iran do? They launched ballistic missiles that they didn't even know we had at Diego Garcia. Now, they didn't miss. They missed. But the point was, the USS Tripoli is in a dock at an island in the Indian Ocean that the US thought they could have it sit there and wait until everyone else was there and they were going to do what they were going to do. Iran said, we don't need to hit your boat to make you, we got to leave. We're going to have to accelerate the timetable. It's that kind of strategy. It's that kind of pressure. It's minute. You're not going to put those things together. But if you look at it in conjunction with these other things, you're like, oh, well, this is a very well-played strategy. And they're trying to push the U.S. to do something before they're ready. So if you haven't read that article, there's a ton more takeaways. And I'm going to push that a little bit. But I want to go back to something, if you're all good, John, with the last thing that I found that I think is really great. And so we have in Australia, Australian scientists at CSIRO at the University of Melbourne and RMIT built and tested the world's first proof of concept quantum battery. Nature likes science and applications. The system charges faster as it scales up via super absorption, quantum effect, and stores energy for 6 orders of magnitude longer than its charge time. This is in an early stage, but could have a massive implications for next gen energy storage. One of the big arguments against batteries is they're inefficient. They solved that problem. They're solving these problems. All the arguments against are being solved.
Right.
It's great. It's fantastic, because if we can deal with the stupids and the dum-dums and the pedos, we have solutions. We can change things. And and I want maybe that will motivate people to take more action. Like, it's not like we don't have the tools to immediately start doing the right thing. The United States could cut all of this crap they're doing and give, instead of $10 billion to the Board of Peace, they could invest $10 billion into this Australian research and make quantum batteries. And that's up to us. That's up to America if we want to be investing in quantum batteries and sustainable energy, or we want to be doing whatever we're doing. So,
that's a great piece of news, and I remember reading that I think that's a few days old, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So here's the choice that people have to make in our time. You can either believe the government that education and scientists and research that is independent of capitalism is a good thing, and that universities and places that research these things that result in what you've just cited, in other words, advancement, increased capacity, these things in the past, the research done at universities, even though it's oftentimes supported and funded by commercial interests, has tended to remain as independent as possible, so that we could make advances that would eventually, be commercialized and so on and so forth. But if you shut down education, if you close the Department of Education like Trump is doing, and you try to dumb down your society, and you try to reduce the number of people who could be pursuing the path towards this kind of research, then what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a society where the whole society is impoverished, and only a few scientists who will do exactly what the government or the corporations want and nothing else. Then you end up in a society that's stupider and not economically better off. Poor, much poorer off. And the whole notion that somehow if you have a strong man who's in cahoots with corporations, that you're going to get a better society, prove it to me. Prove where that's happened in the past. I don't see
concept.
It. I don't see it.
We got it. We got proof of concept.
The only place that I'm reminded that it happens that way is China. And it is true that China, it's a one-party system, and they can do things at an incredible speed because there's no opposition. But their plan isn't well, it is motivated by making money, but it's not capitalist in it's doing capitalist things, but it's not designed exclusively to enrich individuals. It's actually
to enrich the government.
Well, and also, but to make the society stronger. Clearly, China's society is stronger today than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah,
they have a huge middle class. They've done something that nobody wants to acknowledge has any value. And sure, I know, Chinese here in Canada who left China because they don't like the fact that they can't speak up, that they can't have an opinion on anything and so on. Their personal lives are very restrained, and they have to do everything that the government says, and that's bad. Whereas they have the strongman government, and they are actually able to do incredibly fast developments of solar and so on and so forth. So there's a discussion there about how that works, right? And,
absolutely.
And it's a bit complicated.
Yeah, there's definitely lessons to learn from everywhere, right? Like what China you can learn from China is the power of decisiveness. What gives Xi Jinping his edge is that he can be decisive. It's what he decides his vision for China is. That is what China will do.
Right.
Now, a parliamentary system or a congressional system can be decisive. if its intent is not to atrophy the system, but to do its job, right? That's the difference.
That's
It's
what's
the
going
people
on
who
right now.
make up the Congress
Yeah.
who decide whether the government is decisive or not.
Right. Exactly.
And so in China, there is a lot of problems, right? Like they are doing a lot of things that, you know, they're committing a genocide right now. Look up the Uyghur genocide. It's ugly. Okay.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you know,
That's the problem.
what they did in Hong Kong was unacceptable.
Right.
But there is lessons to learn everywhere. And speaking of lessons to learn, you should go and subscribe to John Oliver's Substack, not the comedian, the composer. And he writes about music. He writes about human rights, and you know what he's talking about here. He wants a better society. He wants a better tomorrow, and he writes about it.
Simple.
And it's truly something that I think everybody should be looking at. And you know, the focus on humanity.
Right.
You know, my focus, unfortunately, is on war these days, and I don't want it to be that way forever. But you know, if you want a little bit of balance, go check out John's work, right? You know, because
And
it's
if you want to
also
learn,
important.
and if you want to learn about what's going on with Iran, Shane's work is very, very detailed. I recommend it highly.
Thank you. You know, and so please go ahead and remember, if you're watching on Substack, you can click up in the corner here, click our little name bubbles, and that'll take you to Substack. If you can scan the QR code, go for that too.
Right.
And you know, for myself, if you want to go and see the articles that I've been talking about today, you can go over to my link tree here. At that link tree, you can find my Substack, my other social medias that I'm going to be building out. If you want to support me there, go and follow all of those if you're on any of those platforms. And you can also donate to support me in the Firebrand Project and my work there as well. So really a great way to support my work. So many folks have been doing that, particularly donations. It's really helpful because it goes around the Substack fees. So you're just giving money straightly to support me instead of going through Substack where they take little chunks out. If you are, but not to say being a paid subscriber is also huge and really important as well. So, you know, anything you can do to support me, but most importantly, I don't paywall stuff. So you know, even I'm starting to see other people paywall stuff I didn't think would paywall stuff. So I'm going to definitely not paywall anything because I am very, you know, I believe information is a human right. And so you deserve to know what's going on in the world. The Firebrand Project, it's real, verified, open source analysis and reporting for citizens of democracy, citizen journalists, people who just want to know what's going on. So come support me over there as well. But this has been a fantastic dialogue. I hope you're leaving with a couple positive things today, particularly, I think, in innovation. It should give you a little hope and make you want to fight a little bit harder for us to get there and elevate those things, because, you know, we are in dark times, but, you know, there's a light and we need to make it burn brighter. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for this dialogue. Thank you, John, for moving your schedule around a little bit to join me today. Any last words?
Burn bright.
Burn bright, everybody. Make sure, burn bright, resist, and we will talk to you all later. Bye, everybody. Bye. If I can figure out how to end stream. There we go.